I've had someone actually reach out to me, Brad, personally, to say the time you came on the episode was inspiring when you talked about being a person who can handle these times and handle this change. And there's this Sightbringer note here today, which is in relation to Mike Alfred talking about the animus in Bitcoin, the feeling, the vibe, what it's been like, that people are really down, even though the price is sort of flat all year. And here's what he mentioned. He says, is the people who make it to $1 million US trash tokens for Bitcoin aren't the strongest. They're the least internally conflicted. They sized correctly. They detached identity from outcome. They didn't need Bitcoin to validate intelligence, masculinity, foresight, or destiny. They didn't need narrative every tick. They didn't narrate every tick as a test of character. A lot of strong people blow up because they over-identify. A lot of weak people make it because they're boring and consistent. The mountain metaphor is seductive but misleading. Mountains don't move, markets do. Bitcoin doesn't care if you're resilient, stoic, or enlightened. It cares if you stay solvent, patient, and positioned while regimes unfold. So when someone tells you only the strong will make it, what they're really saying is I survived long enough to build a story that explains why I'm still here. That story may be useful. It is not a universal truth. The real filter isn't strength. It's psychological sustainability over time. And a few people ever train for that, honestly. And so that person reached out.
Wow, what a great tweet. I love that.
Well, and that's, what reminded me of your own, I saw the six pack, you did it. You worked from 2024 Christmas to now. So, our 2023 Christmas, so the beginning of the ETF market, so the start of 2024 January until now, so 2 full years. And, it just reminded me of you. It reminded me of your approach to this conflict that we're dealing with in Canada and how psychologically tough it is. It's not just about strength, though. There is a certain amount of patience and all the rest of it. So there you go.
The other thing about that I have to keep reminding myself of every once in a while is just because I made it so far doesn't mean that I've got some kind of special talent or gift that makes my opinions more valid than somebody else's. And it's easy to get into that mindset when you've accomplished a lot. But, the whole stay humble, stack sats thing is just so important to remember the stay humble part of it, because as Bitcoin goes up, I mean, it seems like only yesterday we were celebrating the all-time high here. We're like, of course it's inevitable, of course everything's gonna fail, and now it's just like, people are depressed over the price. But I've kind of tried to become unaffected by price as much as I possibly can, and part of that is like something that I try to go on Clubhouse every once in a while and let John Seth yell at me and kick me in the balls and be like, you're an idiot. Why'd you make it so far? You probably won't make it for the rest of the ride. Just, you got to get your ego in check, right? So I don't know. How do you guys deal with that?
I mean, that's exactly how I've always seen it. It's been so I'm writing this book right now, The Ringside Seats to the Canadian Apocalypse. And because it just so happens that I was there for the end of Harper, and I'm sort of involved in it, right? The end of Harper, the beginning of Trudeau, and Bitcoin coming to Canada, and then bringing Bitcoin into American politics and what that means. And so at each and every one of these junctures where I diagnose another cause of death for Canada, so the media credibility down the tubes with what killed Harper, in the case of Trudeau being created the way he was, same media story. The next one would have been when I worked, because I came to Toronto with very friendly introductions from the Senate Banking Committee. They all took Bitcoin seriously. I was being introduced by bank CEOs that I knew and real people. And all of them treated me like I was an idiot. And I had to realize very quickly there was no getting a job. Like, I just assumed I would get a job before a Canadian bank. Canada was built on banks and Bitcoin is here and I'm going to go get a job. And that very quickly realized there's no job. Like, I still can't even get a bank account. So you start to see why Canada failed at that time. And that's where I, sort of learned at each and every one of these junctures, like media fail, you can see it was don't trust, verify becomes a very big foundational lesson. Probably the second meme of Bitcoin, right? The first being 21 million, but don't trust, verify, sort of the second or third meme that you confront. But right away, I learned that the stay humble, stack sats was also really important. I was going to have to work. Like, I wasn't going to get a titled job or a corner office and all this stuff. I was going to have to go and get my hands really dirty and struggle, right? So indeed, the stay humble, stack sats is one of the most important survival memes in this game, and I don't think we can make it without it.
Yeah, I think I've gotten to the point of not being emotional at all about the price. Took 15 years, but I very rarely know what the price is or where it's going. And I'll find out about a big move when I'll like go out for dinner with someone and they'll be like, "Oh, you must be happy," or "You must not be happy." And it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not, it doesn't really matter unless I'm planning to sell. So I think I've got the patience on that side, but the one that the interesting parallel that I find is on the topic of Alberta independence. Talking to people at the SAT market, there's a lot of hardcore independent supporters there, and none of them are patient. And I feel that myself. I want to be out now, and there's a process that really is like pulling teeth, and the longer we're here, the more damaging it is. It's like we've got a parasite and we need it removed, like ASAP. So
on that, I've been just like, like with the Bitcoin price, I've stopped paying attention to Canadian politics because like the long-term trend is kind of like it's uncertain, and it's like I'm going to waste all my time trying to follow all this stuff. So negative, like it's take all your time. So I saw there like a couple weeks back, it seemed like we had reached a bottom for Canada's decline. Like it just kind of felt for me like, okay, all the crazies are leaving. Guilbeault resigned when the pipeline stuff started to jump on the table. What's her face? The Ukraine grandfather Nazi newspaper guy. What's her name?
Freeland.
She left, right? So it's like, it
Not
seems
really.
like, well, she's like what, an ambassador to Ukraine or something?
She votes digitally. But
okay.
Yeah.
But their influence seems to be like waning, like the Trudeau era activists, environmentalists that are just kind of extreme about carbon and destroying Canada's economy to save the world, even though we're only like 0.5% of the world's carbon emissions, but like, we're basically a petri dish for all these policies. But all those folks, or at least like the leaders, seem to be waning in their influence. And Carney seems to be like trying to steal Poilievre's policies and make things appear at least like he's open for business and he's going to like merge things, and it'll kind of go back to like what the Liberal Party used to be before the environmental craziness took over. And in that world, like I actually kind of started to like Carney. Like, as strange as that was, I was like, okay, he's just a goofy, silly central banker. He dances awkwardly. He likes silly music, but he's not a threat. And he's making concessions for Alberta and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe like he's actually going to kind of bring things back to the center somewhat. And he's behind the scenes doing all these crazy deals in the name of capitalism and making himself wealthier and stuff, which is like, okay, I can respect that. At least he's not going to destroy the country for these crazy ideals. That's where I felt like things were going. But so I started to feel a little bit okay. But you're saying that pipeline deal is like completely off now, and it was like not going to happen, or it's just delayed or something.
He didn't whip the vote. No. It's over. The Parliament got to vote on it. He allowed a non-confidence vote on the pipeline. That's what you do. You make it a matter of confidence, right?
Yeah, that's what Trudeau did all the time. So they had to vote with the party, right?
You can whip. Other than that, there are on this one. They wouldn't have had to go that far. They probably could have whipped this with a simple threat-based system where you send, like, we literally had a whip in our office when I worked for the whip. We had an actual whip, and you go into offices and you tell them, if you don't do this, let me see what committee you're on right now. Oh, that's a fun committee. Oh, well, you probably won't be on that. Oh, and you're supposed to go to Honduras this winter. Whoa. Well, that'll be canceled. So, you are going to vote with us now. Oh, okay, great. Oh, well, pack your bags, have fun in Honduras. That sounds like a good time. So that's what you do. You can do it that way. If you don't, if you got to run the numbers as a whip office to find out if that's what you need to do. But if you're really worried, which Carney ought to have been, I mean, this is nation building stuff, right? You would whip that and make it a confidence vote. So absolutely every member of your cabinet has to vote, or they have to go back to elections. And he refused to do that, so they lost easily. The pipeline's canceled. They can't build it.
Yeah,
it's over.
Yeah. I think you've been fooled, Brad. This is exactly what they're attempting to do. Is
Fooled again?
They're attempting to
Fool me
water
50
down their
times in a row. Shame on me.
they're attempting to water down their position and make it seem like they're moving back towards the center. But the reality is they're just sort of pivoting the way that they're looting the country, right? Like they're no longer trying to lean into the climate change hysteria because it's just proven that like the vast majority of people are starting to see through that. And at very least, like no one's changing their lifestyle, right? Like even the vast majority of normies in the middle who may still believe in climate change, they're not going to stop going to Mexico. They're not going to stop buying shoes from China. Like their lifestyles are their lifestyles. And the liberal elite are not going to stop their consumption as a result of their carbon footprint. Like that's just not even a possibility. And so if you can't convince those people of that issue, you're probably not really going to convince the masses. And so I think they're just kind of pivoting away from that less popular deception. And they're really focusing on, the areas where they think they can squeeze some things through. And those seem to be, the free speech side. They want to basically lock down control of the internet, tie everything to a digital ID. And,
is that actually like,
yeah, they've just signed Carney has just signed.
People keep saying that, but like, come on, really?
Well, like we had Kyle on, and he took he's broke the story. First of all, he was paying attention to the procurement and the vendors they would use. So he found out it was forked, how they built the app, and he's coming at it from someone who actually has an interest in digital ID and the good and the bad, right? There's plenty of zero knowledge digital IDs out there that would be a net positive for the country. There are plenty of ways to be identified that could at once be privacy preserving, confidentiality preserving. They're different concepts, right? Confidentiality and privacy are not the same thing exactly, especially in a cryptographic engineering context. And, he knows enough about these buildings. He was from the wallet game in the early days of Bitcoin. He was in the ATM game in the early days of Bitcoin. So he has a sense of the authentication. Remember, that's especially when blockchain technology was a big deal. That's the framework people understood blockchain technology. It's an authenticator and it's a authorizer. So who are you and can you do what you're trying to do, right? That's essentially what a blockchain is supposed to, if you believe the blockchain science. It extends Bitcoin's functionality to who are you? The key is yours, so that's who you are. Do you control enough Bitcoin to send that much Bitcoin to a person? So who are you? Can you do that? And the internet was never really able to solve those problems, and that's where a lot of the blockchain technology hype came from, which but that's the framework he applied to a good digital ID. And from what he gathered, that's not what they're building. It's just who are you? We'll let you do this. Not the same technology, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that their efforts at digital ID are aimed at censorship and financial control, right? They're going to want to tie your ability to spend your digital dollars to, what did you say on Twitter last week, or what was your carbon impact?
Man, I don't know. That doesn't sound like that's going to happen. I feel like there's a lot of people saying that's like it's
going to happen.
The incompetence is going to keep it from happening. The incompetence will keep it from happening, and the nature of World War III being that here's the other document that's useful to cover here. This national security strategy that you see here, Brad. This was a document along with an American Financial Stability Oversight Committee document that was released just this week, which really underlined. So, I created that belligerence of World War III board, but these two documents confirm what I'm saying. It is exactly that. We are in a energy systems and financial systems war. And on this note here, in this national security strategy document, it's very clear that Canadian energy is in the crosshairs. And then if you look at what's going on with the stablecoins are being targeted towards the Canadian dollar. I mean, that is the way the Genius Act is configured. It means that they can't offer yield to Americans, but a stablecoin issuer of US dollars, as long as they're buying T-bills, can offer yield to Canadians. So US citizens are going to be subsidizing the weaponization of a stablecoin dollar into Canadian hands because America is lowering interest rates. Once Trump gets control of interest rates, it's a full weaponization because Canada will have to lower too. And then suddenly you're going to get 10% yield on US dollar stablecoin deposits in Canada. And that's not going to be very competitive with the Canadian dollar. So that's why it's not going to work. Not because of desire or altruism or they're actually not so bad. I don't think they're that bad. I think they don't know what they're doing and they get caught up in all of these schemes. And so some people might know, but it's a trend into that direction. But it won't be realized. So I'm not worried about it, nor would I sign up. But in some ways, that was always going to be, when you saw COVID and the way that broke down, and you're seeing it, I was covering education yesterday in my show, and I had a testimony from a teacher saying, look, you don't understand what the divide is now. The divide is between people who can do so much stuff, that are so clever, such amazing kids, and other kids who literally they can't solve the most basic problems. And what we saw during COVID and the split between people handled COVID. Some people drifted towards health, others drifted towards nihilism. And that split looks pretty persistent throughout Canadian demographics. That's why being an able-bodied person, what I read about Sightbringer and focusing on your own, cultivating your own resilience and your own psychological strength is probably the only way through this. And the people who didn't are probably going to be signing up for food stamps because it's going to be.
ChatGPT has gotten so much better this week. Because while we're chatting about this, I'm just kind of like asking ChatGPT some stuff. And man, it's actually good. Like it's got a nuanced, balanced take now on, because I'm asking it to compare like what the claims are with what's reality, and then also compare it to the UK and their situation now, because the UK is under this insane like free speech crisis where thousands of people are being arrested monthly for their posts. And it does a really good job of actually comparing what's the difference between Canada and what's the difference between the UK and what's the trajectory that we're on that people are worried about that we may become more like the UK.
Let's hear.
It's kind of too long to talk about it, but it's basically just saying that, there's 4 claims that, Canada's being forced to adopt a mandatory national ID for all citizens. That's not true. The government's piloting the digital credentials for convenience and security with optional use currently. The Liberals passed a digital surveillance bill, or they're going to, it's partially contested because there is the C2 expanded access bill that's being debated right now, but it's not passed. They're under debate. And then that our privacy rights are being erased is an exaggerated claim, but it says that there is real concern about specific data access powers for the government, but we still have the strong charter protections and legal oversight mechanisms. And Canada, like later on, I asked another thing, Canada has a stronger protections under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms than the UK. And Canadian courts have routinely been siding with citizens on privacy issues versus in the UK where they haven't been. So it's like our legal systems don't work the same way. So even if some things get passed here that could lead to a UK-like system, it's not necessarily comparable because we don't have the same legal system as them. Ours is apparently better, for not as good as the Americans, I guess, but
so our legal system is pretty untested on speech at the moment, but in recent history, we've seen that our legal system is not sound when it comes to property, right? We've seen like the two glaring
Yeah,
examples
property.
just recently are the First Nations land rights and the ostriches, right?
Mhm.
Where these are examples where the government is expressly violating someone's private property rights, and the courts did not uphold the rights of those citizens. And so
Mhm.
I don't have a whole lot of confidence that if they do bring through measures that violate the charter, that the courts will protect Canadians from the government. I don't have much confidence
I
in
agree
that at
with
all.
that. Look at like what just recently happened with the COVID measures and the trucker convoy and all that stuff. Like the inquiry, that the special inquiry was a mess, and it was like Trudeau's family friend was in charge of it, and they wouldn't let the RCMP testify. I remember it was my MP actually in Nova Scotia who was part of that whole thing. I was shocked when I found that out. I was watching some highlight clips of it, and they used some kind of like legal loophole to just shut down the RCMP testimony. Wouldn't even hear the testimony in the House of Commons. So yeah, for sure, there's reason to be concerned, which is why we started this podcast. But man, I hope we don't get as bad as the UK. I'm trying to have some hope here for Christmas.
No, I agree. It won't. The UK, what happened in the UK is that they can pass any law, and the judges have to go with it. There's no test about the constitutionality of the law. That's kind of our only hope in Canada. The judges won't go against the law when it's passed, and they'll even read into the law to make it constitutional. We've seen that before. What we did in Canada in the Harper administration is our hate speech law used to be too vague. It was likely to incite violence. So the likely piece was where all the litigiousness happened. It's where all the quasi-judiciaries. So we set up these human rights tribunals, and the human rights tribunals just do very passive constitutional tests. And a lot of people thought that likely provision was too vague. Laws have to be very specific and easy to follow for them to be constitutional. So we removed that word, but it took us implementing a legal change. The courts wouldn't do it for us because even though the Supreme Court has supervisory duties over the quasi-judicial human rights tribunals, it created an incentive racket. People were making money off of it because likely to incite.
We should have Anna come on to talk about this stuff. I mean, she's a lawyer and a human rights, free speech advocate, and does work with like some of these groups, like the not the Human Rights Foundation, but the Justice Center, and the Constitution. I can't remember the name of them. The Canadian Constitution.
Yeah, there was one that came out and said what you were saying about the truckers and made a big, long publication.
DCFI or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea to have her on after the holidays.
Because I would like to hear her take on the risks that we have, because she's got a reasonable, balanced, logical take on things, and she's a Bitcoiner, so I trust her.
Exactly. And that's what it is. We're a P2P information network as well, right? And that's pretty much the only way we've had the resilience to survive all this stuff. Because just think about it, even myself, I do this every day. And I was gone a few days last week to the Middle East, and just being out of the news for 2 or 3 days, by the time I got back and was preparing for my show Wednesday or Friday morning, I actually couldn't do it because I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. The news is coming so fast, and it's so complicated now, and so full of fake and misleading psychological operations that I literally sat there in the morning and could not decipher. And I do this professionally. I'm world class at media literacy, and I could not tell you what was. It took me a day or two just to get back into the pace of things to be able to know, okay, this is a real story, this is not, this is real. And imagine you've got to consume hours a day as your business, and already I'm in a you can't reproduce me. I come from my dad putting physical newspapers on my table every single morning of my life, and reading the newspaper throughout the 1990s while we still had newspapers, and knowing the slant already back then of each individual paper. So I've got, 30 years, literally 30 years of experience with media owners, creating my own media companies, being in media. And that is a talent stack that you can't just replicate. And I can't follow. I mean, I cannot follow unless I'm doing it every day, 2 hours of live streaming about the news. 2 hours a day. You can't make it. You know, that's a bit that's like worse than what Wall Street expected of people to participate in financial markets. It's like you need a 130 IQ just to read the news. That's absurd. And that's the situation we're in. So it's and that's why we have all of this sort of with a lack of confidence. That's why you've got all these people going off into conspiracy theory zones and everything, because there is no more center of credibility. Everyone's got to fill in the blanks with their own imagination and hallucinations, just like AI does. And that's what we're getting out. That's why things look so nuts, right? I mean, like we were saying, I don't know if you realize this, but like Trump media today, the holders of the Bitcoin and the Trump coin and Truth Social just merged with a nuclear fusion company, okay? And the nuclear fusion guy just got murdered. Yeah, and the nuclear fusion guy got murdered in MIT, but he was murdered by the same person that murdered the Bitcoin holder at Brown University over the weekend. It's the same.
What the
murder.
heck? What's going? I didn't hear about any of this.
All real. This is all happening.
There was a Brown I saw John Seth posted something on Twitter about some controversy at Brown, but I never read into it. Like, what's going on with Brown?
He walked in and shot 2 students. One of them was the head of the Young Republicans, also a Bitcoin holder, a big Charlie Kirk acolyte. So that's where the Bitcoin came into her life. And she's dead. So they didn't find the killer. It took a couple of days. It happened on the same day as the Bondi Beach thing in Australia. So everyone was worried about one murder, but there's another murder. So it kind of got lost in the shuffle of all the murders and Al-Akbars. Yeah. And then, so you move from the religious violence, and then the murderer shows up, and he's dead now. Convenient, they got him. But he went and killed a nuclear fusion scientist. What? And then the next day, yeah. I don't know, this is
why? What was the reason?
Nobody knows.
Some reason.
But it was related to the Trump acquisition.
Nobody knows. It's just convenience. It's just, literally just a coincidence.
How?
But people are like, wait, what? Yeah, I mean, I'll show you the.
Very strange.
Oh no, it's very crazy. No, it's not. It doesn't mean the Trump thing is related, but I'll show you the Autism Capital.
It's very weird seeing Trump Jr. or whoever it is posting on Instagram all the time, like in his Bitcoin mine, being like, I got a new Bitcoin mining company and I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the future. I'm mining so much Bitcoin. I'm like, what universe?
It's with the whole Jason Lowery framework. He has every US military flag flying on that mining site.
That's crazy. So is Jason Lowery like advising or something, or just inspired?
Nobody knows. Who knows? I don't think he has to. He read the book. That's enough. It's got every Space Force and everything flying from that facility.
So looking this up quickly, it looks like they're planning to build the first like utility scale nuclear fusion power plant. And, you know, that pairs pretty well with Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah. And here, I'll show you the.
I texted Anna, by the way. She said that she's probably going to try to jump on with us. She's like, is it okay though if I'm wearing a Christmas sweater?
We love it.
It's like, well, I'm dressed like a Santa's elf, so yeah, it's perfectly fine.
All right, let me see where this.
What are you munching on there, Dave? And what do you got in your cup?
Well, my cup is full of liberal tears.
Okay, nice.
Harvested on my last trip out east, and I've got some grapes.
Oh, grapes!
Yeah, I'm a big fan of grapes.
Very festive.
Here we go, Brad. Just so
I got
you
some eggnog. I'm drinking some eggnog here.
I had my good friend from St. Margaret's Bay introduce me when we would finish law school. I went to law school with him, and every end of exams, he would bring over the vodka and eggnog. I didn't know that was or maybe rum and eggnog or something, but I didn't know that was a drink. I mean, it took you Nova Scotians to teach me, but I was a fan. So here's the story, Brad, that people are wondering about. So breaking: Trump media agreed to merge with nuclear fusion company TAE Technologies in an all-stock deal worth more than 6 billion US trash tokens. And Autism Capital says, wait a second, and this is the guy that was murdered just a few days earlier. And apparently the technology that the Trump, Devin Nunes and all that, they call it a crown jewel technology. So literally, of the 2 or 3 folks closest to solving nuclear fusion that can make it commercially viable, that's one of them. And now, I don't think the murder is related necessarily, but something's going on here that is, I think of it in terms of Harry Potter. It's like Muggles know there's a wizard war going on, and you can't quite perceive it because of fog of war and everything like that. You're a little bit distanced from it, but perceptionally, we can understand something's up, right? What Trump is doing with the central banks and with the London power structure, with the drugs, and now with the energy, there is a reconfiguration, which is why I use that belligerent map for our, positioning in World War III.
Okay, Anna's here.
Great. Oh, you got her the link?
She said, I'm in. Do you see her?
I don't. I should be able to, though. I can handle 4 people. You sent her this link?
I might have sent her an old one. Let me check again.
On that scientist's death there, it's been a fact for a long time that inventing free or cheap energy is very bad for your health.
Well, they say that nuclear fusion scientists sitting in your office is the most dangerous job statistically in the world now. There's only like 5 of them, and they're all dead or something like that. I'm making up these numbers, but it's that bad. Apparently, it's that bad. There's an innovator's dilemma, and then there's this. Right? I don't think this is what Christensen was talking about. Clayton Christensen, the author of the Innovator's Dilemma, which is a very simple, Innovator's Dilemma is if you're too good at something, why would you innovate, right? So that's what kills companies. And many people for many years thought that was the problem with energy. Oh, the oil works great. The oil companies just don't want to bother. They're making too much money. That's what explains why we're not making any headway in energy and electricity. And now we find out, well, maybe not. Maybe there was something else at play. And who knows? That to me, that shows that we are in the middle of a psychological and economic war. While there's definitely hot war aspects to it and people perishing for sure, including the nuclear physicist, there's important and uncontainable stories that are coming out from this war waging in the shadows. And I think this is just a great example of it. And again, I mean, I'm sure it all makes sense if you have all the details, but right now we don't have all the details. So you're left to fill in the blanks with your imagination, which is where all of these conspiracy theories running in every direction come from. Right? It's the system not believing in itself. It's the system not able to cultivate much integrity and credibility. There's Anna. Let me get a new configuration here. I get a 4 cam. We're going 4 cam. So there you go. We got Lee J saying rum and eggnog and a must during the holidays. Gotta head out today and secure some Dutchman nog. Is that the brand you guys love out in Alberta? Dutchman, is that the one you're?
Yeah, it's from BC actually. It's from Sycamoose, I think, but it's great milk. So I've never had their eggnog. Good.
Speaking of milk, I'll share this video because again, this is the credibility thing we're getting in Canada. I shared it on my morning show, but I, want other Canadians to see it as well. And oh, there's Anna. I'll share it real quick for y'all. Wow, we'll share it after. It's basically just a video of someone pouring out the milk. Anna, welcome to the stage. I'm going to pull you up in just 1 second so I don't shock you. I see a kitty there. We love cats.
I can't stop her. She's aggressively cuddly, so.
We love it, Anna. So we're sitting here. Pardon me?
I win. I'm the most Christmassy.
Well, yeah, we thought Brad could win for the day. I didn't do any Christmas stuff, but we love the Christmas season. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good digital ID, right? Is that so? Does everyone get a digital ID for Christmas?
So we started
what's going-
talking a little bit about that, and I'm skeptical. I'm like, come on, are we really going to be in this? Like, there's a lot of people that are scaring me, saying that we're going to go into like a UK style free speech restricted zone situation where you could get arrested for what you post, or if you don't register with some body and prove you're Canadian, you won't be able to make videos anymore in Canada. And you're going to have to be forced to use digital IDs and all this really dystopian Orwellian stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to like govern myself and not get too scared about it all and be like, okay, well, it's probably going to get stopped. It's probably not going to pass. There's probably going to be some, the conservatives are going to be able to pull something out to stop it. But obviously Nolan and Dave have, they're both on the other side of this argument. Are you also on that side of the argument? What do you think about all this? I know you're very concerned
She's
about
not
all these
looking
privacy
good.
issues.
Not looking like she's bringing you satisfaction, Brad.
No, I don't think, I mean, I think you're going to get nothing but paranoia from me, unfortunately, because the thing is that
great.
with our abilities now to process data, like abilities that people can't even possibly imagine with compute power, we can do that now, right? We can monitor large numbers of people. And I think that digital ID is something that governments, of course they desire it. Of course they do. Monitoring their citizens, like it's just a power that's just too delicious. And I think that most governments that are unprincipled are just going to be drawn to that like a moth to the flame. And in terms of the Conservatives' ability to hold back the Liberal government from doing that, I mean, I don't think that they'll be able to do it right now, right? They claim to be on the cusp of majority, and the Liberals have signaled that they are extremely interested in digital ID, extremely interested in it.
You know
So
what? Now that we're talking about it,
will come down the pipe.
it all makes sense now why they're pushing so hard for government-controlled AI data center infrastructure, because then they can monitor everything that we do and say,
Yeah.
which
And
sucks.
the capability is there, right?
Now-
And we live online. We live online. We put our private lives online. So it's just too tantalizing to right.
Now, to assuage your fears, Brad, I continue to believe that if you're a Bitcoiner and you don't need the fiat, if you don't need the food stamps that they're turning their money into, because that's why I use food stamps as an example. It's all turning into food stamps. We're entering into a bimetallic era. The Canadian dollar will be wiped out as we know it. And what's left of the Canadian dollar will be for government policy actions. It will exist as a Canadian dollar. People will perceive it as a Canadian dollar, but it'll be like the peso down in Argentina, where the peso is good for consumption. You can buy coffee, you can buy Coke, you can go for lunch with a peso, but you can't buy a house with pesos. You can't buy a car with pesos. You can't really run your financial life with pesos. That's dollars or Bitcoin. And so when you imagine with the way the Stablecoin Genius Act is calibrated in the States, it's war against the Canadian dollar. But whatever it turns into, you got to imagine that governments are going to want to keep the carrot and the stick of the money. They're going to have some policy fungible coin, which will be the Canadian dollar. And so it's always been my belief that the people who want all the government control are going to get it. But the way to opt out is going to be to not need their money. And to not
Well, what
need-
about like we have you've done some work, I think, Anna, with some of these nonprofits in Canada that are like constitutional groups and stuff, or I found out about them through you and Steve. So I don't know if you work with them or not, but are they fighting this stuff? Or is there any kind of hope that we can trust these groups that are set up to be able to fight back against these creepy bills?
Well, the problem is that I think a lot of the not-for-profit groups that advocate for civil liberties in Canada, they focus on specific cases and specific individuals. They comment on larger issues, but I think ultimately they view them as kind of large-scale they're political issues. And if people have a real problem with Bill C-9, they should handle it at the ballot box. We handle individuals, we comment on things, but we don't. And we, I mean them, right? But they don't intervene specifically before the legislation passes, on a court level. So it's their ability to hold back legislation like this is so limited because it's just not within their scope. And honestly, like they're funded by the public, right? They get donations just like any other not-for-profit. And if they don't have the money to fight these things, they don't have the resources to do it, then they don't fight it. They pick
And,
it up.
and if you think of what Trump has done in the United States over the first year of his mandate, his war has been against NGOs. NGOs have been actually a way of air gapping responsibility and feedback from your elected representatives. It's what makes them less of a representative. Canada, the legislators in Canada for years hid behind the bureaucracy as an abstraction between accountability and responsibility in them. And now the NGO layer has come in and provided another bit of disturbance and friction in the feedback loop that you want, right? What you want is your representative in Ottawa representing your county, not a party. That was already an abstraction of responsibility, because once you throw everything into an omnibus budget, you say, well, I had to vote for it. What do you mean? If I wanted to get the pork for us, I needed to vote for the pork for them. So the concept of the omnibus bill, everything we have in Parliament is designed to actually take away responsibility and feedback and accountability from our elected representatives. And NGOs became the biggest gravity suck in all of that. And Trump's actual first 6 months as president, he's only been recently able to turn the page on the NGO cabal, but that's who laundered all the money. That's who did all of the crazy things for, democracy and censorship. The NGOs were the absolute worst when it came to censorship. They're the ones who gave the predicate for it. Defending democracy predicate has been for 2 years now code word for censor. It's a defense against democracy. That was their predicate. So you can't trust the NGOs at all. They're worse than the governments.
Well, so they do. I mean, there are those that you can trust, right? It depends on the NGO. There's so many, right? NGOs are the most efficient way for citizens to collect together and make change. So it's just some of that change is not great. One of the results of NGOs and their increase in power and basically the outsourcing of the individual's accountability and responsibility in democracy is that there's a centralization of power in Ottawa, because the NGOs are all in Ottawa, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the individual citizen who says, you know what, I don't like what's going on in my community. I'm going to fix this in my community. I'm going to donate my money instead, or donate my time to this NGO. They're organized. They seem to have it all together. They have all the answers. They have the email lists. They have the slick media. They have the social media. I'm going to go to them. They're going to solve the problems. I don't agree with everything they say, but they go to Ottawa and they advocate for some of the things that I care about. So it just results in this centralization of interest in Ottawa that makes, and I live in rural Canada, and rural Canada feels extremely disconnected from Ottawa. And it's becoming an increasingly serious issue in our democracy that rural Canada feels completely cut off from the elites who rule us in Ottawa.
Yeah. And I would even say, as a Quebecer, like, believe it or not, I know it's hard for other people to imagine, but even Quebecers feel cut off from power in this calibration, which is absurd to say out loud, because we, obviously we gained the entire Confederation for our benefit. So you would be confused as to wonder how we could be complaining. But the truth is, it's just a small part of Quebec that has influence. And the rest of Quebec is wondering, like, why are all these student visas given out? Why is all this coming in? Why would we do this? And Quebec has a million questions, especially from rural Quebecers, about how things are going. And they don't get answered, right? We don't feel like there's some, special line of communication we have in Quebec to the Ottawa. I know it's hard for you guys to hear that, but that is the perception here, right?
So let's say that the evil globalists and their dancing monkey managed to get through all of these measures, undermining our free speech, and allow the erosion through these land claims or whatever other means of our property rights. Anna, do you have any confidence that the Charter and the courts of Canada might actually protect Canadians' property or free speech rights in the long run, assuming they do pass these things and somebody challenges them in the courts at some point?
I think those are related but two separate issues. I think the land claim thing is making the judiciary panic like nobody else's business, because it's such a hot issue. I honestly don't know how it's going to end up and how people are going to handle it. Because here's the thing, if you roll back to meetings in Ottawa and even local meetings here, where in the small city where I live, you have people in power in positions of influence acknowledging that they are on unceded territory, even if they are actually on unceded territory, which is kind of silly, but that's beside the point. So you have people acknowledging, people in positions of power acknowledging that they're on unceded territory. All you have to do is go to court and replay those. All these people in positions of power have acknowledged that they don't have a claim to our land, and now all of a sudden,
mess.
right? Like it's so. What? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that incredibly compelling evidence? So. And you can say, oh, this is merely symbolic, but it's like, if words have power, if it's symbolic, why did you say it? Right. So I think that's like one side of the panic. In terms of the freedom of speech, I actually think that the courts will very much find in favor of the government legislation. I think that I have very little faith that the judiciary, with all respect from me, but I have very little faith that they will stand up and defend Canadians' right to free speech. I think we've seen that multiple times. We saw that with the trucker protest. We saw that with honestly various other examples in the past few years relating to COVID. And I am very skeptical that they would stick their neck out. Honestly, these are, you have to remember, judges are people. They purport to have this kind of, to carry themselves with this air of, I will uphold the tenets of this democracy. I will be a pillar in this democracy. And that's great. But do you have the bravery to do that with your aspirations? Because there's always somebody, you can always be a bigger judge, right? Until you get the Supreme Court of Canada, you're not at the final boss level. And people always, of course, they're human, they have aspirations. So sticking your neck out is a real risk, because especially in this age of self-censorship, people are so reluctant to stand up for what matters. Even the people who really should. So I have very little faith. I think that if we want to defend freedom of speech in this country, I think it's going to have to be a grassroots movement.
Yeah, my respect for the Supreme Court, along the lines of what you're saying, Anna, went completely out the door when Beverly McLaughlin became the Chief Justice in Hong Kong and permitted the entire takeover of China and Hong Kong. She wrote that up. She made that okay, right? She was the signature that made it fine. Sure, extradite people to mainland China. That's completely democratic. She was the person in charge of that. And I've known her. I've met her many times. And we did a conference together years ago. And, when I saw that, I said, okay, like, these people are, like you said, bravery, stick your neck out. Like, you're dealing with a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that couldn't read the most basic law. It's actually called the Basic Law. That's what it was called, the Basic Law of Hong Kong. She couldn't understand it, or at least did understand it, and then was able to hallucinate some way that made it fine for China. And I mean, that should go down in history as one of the biggest failures of any Canadian. Think of it. Hong Kong is no longer part of the Commonwealth. It's no more common law. That's all gone. It's Chinese law now. And it was fine. That was always the big promise, though. Hong Kong was going to remain a special case with its basic law, and it was going to have commercial law for common law for its commercial law, and it was all supposed to be like that. Nope. A Canadian got rid of that for us, and she's the one who made it all okay. And that's pretty bad news. That's a Supreme Court justice. That's not anybody.
Next thing you know, we're not going to be able to trust the government.
Well, to be fair, I mean, when you talk to people on the street, they don't trust the government. They have, and I think that's very dangerous. And I'm not saying that the people are dangerous. I'm saying that the government over the past however many years has eroded the public trust through their actions. And of course, and now is stepping in to even more so govern what we can say, and indeed by extension, what we can think. And that erodes public trust even further.
I got a great idea for a business. It'll be like a food truck, but it sells torches and pitchforks.
Hey, you want to go?
And like, honest, there are people who are upset enough for that. Large amounts of people. Yeah. Like here's the thing: it's real when people can't feed their families.
Yeah.
And then they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta run.
Yeah.
Let's leave it with some positive. What can we do to protect ourselves against this creeping surveillance stuff and potentially a liberal majority? Aside from leaving,
I mean,
is there anything hopeful we can do?
We have two really good things on our side. One is obviously Bitcoin, and the other is the fact that these people who are trying to do this to us are profoundly incompetent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
I don't think they're incompetent enough not to achieve their evil aims, unfortunately. I do think that their freedom of speech legislation will come in. But look, people need to get, the part of the problem is that people are so apathetic. People need to get politically involved. And not even with parties, like parties aside, like politically involved, like read the news all the way through every day. Not TikTok, like not just the news, multiple sources, like read it all.
But what do you do with that information though?
Well, you have to organize into groups of citizens. And I believe that citizens can do this by first of all, stopping self-censorship, by being brave enough in their everyday lives to not self-censor. So things like, I'm going to wish people Merry Christmas. I don't mean it to offend. That's something that starts small. But once, like if I say Merry Christmas, and obviously, whoop, Merry Christmas. But if I say Merry Christmas to somebody and they're like, oh, are we saying Merry Christmas? Okay, Merry Christmas, totally fine to say. And all of a sudden they're going to say it, and it works out from there. So, and I'm not saying go around.
So Rob Reiner dies, and we should all write the Rob Reiner obituary that Trump wrote, because that was the greatest example of no self-censorship you'll ever see a human being.
I mean, he's a walking, talking piece, that man. It is. I just like how he signs his tweets. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I just want to say that to everybody in real life. It's hilarious to me.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up. And as a finishing note, like that is, what drew me to Trump originally in 2015. I said in an era of self-censorship, because the conservatives suffered from that too under Harper. I had given up on the Harper administration because they really believed if they did a good job that they would be respected by the news. And I said, that is never going to happen. You're not keeping your majority. If you're playing this game, that if you just govern Canada really well, you're going to get another majority. You're lucky you got the 2011 majority, and you should have played harder when you had the chance. And you let the CBC survive. You had the boot in their neck, and you could have ended it. And you chose, like the Ring in Lord of the Rings, to try to keep the power to yourself. And you had a chance to destroy it, and you let evil survive. And now we got to deal with it. And self-censorship became the biggest problem. It was the problem for Harper government. Again, they thought messaging, unity would save them. If they were disciplined, they would make it. I knew that was a scam. And when you saw Trump incapable of self-censorship, you realized it didn't matter what Trump said, as long as he said what he thought.
Dave's got to go, but he's already gone. Never mind. I was going to make a joke about Dave making his New Year's resolution to stop self-censoring.
That's a good New Year's resolution. I like that.
Because he doesn't self-censor. That was the joke.
You guys are not what I would call your typical example of citizens, by the way.
Maybe not.
Well, even me, like I'm thinking of it like, if this is true, if all this stuff is happening, they're building giant state-controlled AI surveillance data centers to be able to trawl through everything that's said on the internet and through text messages. Then maybe I got to censor a little bit more of what I'm doing and saying online. But it goes contrary to the kind of sovereign individual thesis of like just being truthful and my own values of being truthful, speaking the truth. And I guess I just need to hire more lawyers to deal with the fallout that comes from speaking truth.
There are insurance policies for that. You can just get a lot of legal, like litigation insurance.
Oh my God,
you.
Really?
Yes, you can. Yeah,
let's do it. Let's go. Can you?
Yeah, it's on that. In Bitcoin media, we divide all the time.
Text me about that, because I don't want to self-censor, but like living in a state that like restricts free speech and it doesn't have strong property rights, it kind of makes me want to speak out about it. Or
we bought a huge policy at CoinDesk in the old days for that reason.
Yeah. No. It's a scary time, but I actually think there's a real opportunity for Canadians to reset how they view their own democracy. I'm optimistic about that.
Same.
But I think that reset must happen.
Yeah. The system is in overdrive trying to survive because it perceives its own weakness right now. And that's why you see the digital ID and the censorship reaction, because truthfully, it has caught a fatal disease, and I don't know if it survives. So that's
what a tragic and lazy way to govern people, to put them under your thumb. How lazy is that? How awful and lazy. Instead of governing them with a healthy economy and a good country and a strong sense of national pride, you put them under your thumb.
Mental illness spread and writ large due to money printing and all of the mental illness and lack of accountability and feedback loop that creates, which, just like an individual can get mentally ill from not integrating their shadow and not realizing and coming to terms with their own accountability of their own abilities, failures in life. It creates mentally ill people. Societies can suffer from the exact same thing. And that's what we got. All right, everyone. But still, we're here to celebrate Christmas. And indeed, no matter what happens, we're going to thank the Lord. We've got a beautiful Christmas time coming up. I wish the best to you and yours over this holiday. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas. We're always going to say Merry Christmas on this show. We're never going to self-censor about the holidays. We love Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Mohammed. Merry Christmas to you, everyone. That's what I think. That's my political belief.
Yeah, I had a great, before we bounce, I had a great experience with that today, because just about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7, I can't remember, I just felt like, okay, I'm not going to do this happy holidays. I'm going to feel bad for saying Merry Christmas thing. I love Christmas. So I'm just going to say Merry Christmas all the time. I wear my Santa hat everywhere during December. Go to the grocery store, to the gym, like wherever I'm going, I wear the Santa hat out. And today it was like, I was I was talking to a customer service person on the phone, and it was a good interaction or whatever. But at the end, they were like, "Oh, happy holidays." They heard my Christmas music playing in the background. So they were like, "Happy holidays." I was like, "Merry Christmas." And then she was like, kind of paused for a second, and she was like, "Merry Christmas." Like it was some strange secret.
Yeah, but
it's like she was breaking the rules or something.
Firsthand what a scam it is. I was in the Middle East last week. Let me tell you, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, maximum Christmas, max Christmas happening there. They do not hesitate. Nice. There is no happy holidays. Merry Christmas everywhere. Merry Christmas decorations in every hotel. Yeah. Christmas decorations on every street. They got a lot of Christian workers there, so they let them celebrate. That's fine. There's all Christmas everywhere. So it's only us. Everybody else is fine with it,
We're apologizing.
Yeah. Well, everyone, indeed, if I don't see you before the New Year or Christmas, I just want to say personally, Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming today, everyone. And indeed, Happy New Year. All the best in 2026. And let's all get together the first week of January, not January's 1st or 2nd or whenever the holiday is for New Year's, but the first Friday after. We'll have a good time and catch up on everything happening in Canada. All right?
Merry Christmas.
Peace. Take it easy, guys. All right, folks. See ya, Brad. Merry Christmas, my man.
See you later, man. Merry
All
Christmas.
Right. Yeah, man. So that's what we got, indeed. Take care, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy Boxing Day to the crew. We love Boxing Day, indeed. Fourth turning vibes, indeed. It is fourth turning vibes. Leaving down Brad on a happy note. He's fine. Brad is going to be fine. All right, folks. I'm going to play the ad, I think, and it will be followed by I don't have the ad. Oh, no, I do. I'll play the ad. It'll be followed by the thanks for watching screen. I just want to tell you, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching all year long. This is our last breakup episode of 2025. We will see you all in 2026 for maybe the last year of Canada's existence, or maybe not. Who knows? We'll find out. Tune in here for more news. You can catch me on Monday morning. I'll be live Monday morning for perhaps the last episode before Christmas, not of the year, just before Christmas, of the Great Awakening. So welcome, everyone, on Monday morning. Have a great weekend for now. If I don't see you, if you just tune into the Canadian show, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you soon. Peace.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin. No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin! Come on, little buddy! Bitcoin! I need you! Don't go!
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.